Welcome to Misfits and Mystics podcast, where we have conversations intersecting faith, mental health, artistry, and social justice. We're so glad you're here. So get cozy.
But not too cozy, because we do keep it real on this podcast.
Listen with care.
And enjoy.
Hi loves, welcome back to the show. It's me, Abra, and I'm so glad you're here because we have a special treat for you. Surprise! This is a bonus episode that Alicia and I recorded with our friend Whitney, which we had on the podcast in episode 10, Queering Dance. If you haven't listened to that episode yet, you totally should get on that. We recorded this a few weeks ago, literally a few hours before we went to see Tank and the Bangas in concert here in Nashville. And it was such a treat having Alicia here visiting with me. And Whitney is such a gem. So, of course, I had to have these two wonderful humans meet face to face finally. And we just dove into such a random but fruitful, life-giving conversation. And I'm delighted to share some of that conversation with you all. So we're hoping to put out more bonus content for you guys from time to time. So if you have any ideas, feel free to reach out to us, get on social media, get in our inbox, and we'd love to hear from you. So get comfy, but not too comfy, because we do have some sensitive subject matter that does come up, because you know that's how it goes sometimes. So take care of yourself as you listen and after the fact. But I'm so grateful to have beautiful friends share their stories and just allow space for growth and discovery. So without further ado, here is our conversation. Praise the Lord.
Praise the Lord.
Praise the Lord.
Praise the Lord.
Come on, I can't hear you in Zion.
It was like, praise the Lord, Jesus Christ, in the name of the Lord. Okay. Praise the Lord, everybody.
I said praise the Lord, everybody.
Right. Make it known.
When I think about the goodness of Jesus
and what he has done
for me, my soul cries out, hallelujah.
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 Phonetically spelled.
Hallelujah. Thank you for saving me.
This is out of control. It is. But it's so good. I would listen to this night and day.
Night and day.
Baby!
Night and day. Oh, we need to bring it back. Bring it back.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Well, guys, as you can tell, this is not a typical episode of Misfits and Mystics podcast. This is the moment we've all been waiting for.
Yes.
I have Alicia here.
Hey, y'all.
She's actually sitting next to me.
Oh.
This is so great.
It's pretty.
And we also have the beloved Whitney.
Oh, hey.
Back on the show.
I'm back.
Like 1 week later.
This is amazing.
I told you we'd have you back.
Wow.
Yeah. So we
have Abra.
Oh yeah. I'm here. Yeah, I'm here and I'm queer and
still no beer.
Still no beer.
Well,
but we're here with other treats. Yeah, Alicia came down. We're gonna go see Tank and the Bangas.
Yes. I'm so excited.
And I also got Whitney a ticket, and
I'm gonna dance like crazy.
And I also got my friend Molly a ticket. Molly's, doing her thing somewhere in my house.
Hi, Molly.
Say hey, Molly. She's just shaking her head. She's like, nah.
Y'all should say it.
Hey. Molly's
that was Molly, guys. No, I'm just kidding.
This is great.
And so today you have the alto, the soprano, and the tenor.
Right. And we have the PK Club all together.
Woo woo.
Shout out to Elena, who was the original third of our PK Club back in college.
She's still there. I'm the fourth.
Elena, we love you.
Yeah.
I see you doing great things in New York. Shout out to Loretta, too. Y'all are the bomb. You probably, if you're listening, yeah. Anyway. Yeah, but we're here to talk about growing up in the black church. Because, first of all, I'm sick of hearing about white evangelicals on Twitter, on Facebook, on the internet. It's time for us to talk about our experiences. The good, the bad, the ugly, the traumatizing, maybe. But yeah, we're here. We're eating our Slim and Huskies pizza. Shout out to Slim and Huskies. If you live in Nashville or Atlanta and you haven't had Slim and Huskies yet, what are you doing? I don't know. So get your butts down there and get you some good pizza. Promise this is not sponsored. But Slim and Huskies, if you want to,
And they just broke ground in Atlanta.
Right.
Which is incredible.
I know. I want to go.
Me too.
Let's go.
Come on.
Road trip.
Yeah, I'm in.
Right.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Black-owned businesses, support them.
Please.
Please.
Period. So, yeah, why don't we all go around and say what denomination we belong to, because we all belong to different ones.
I belong to none of them.
But you were raised in
Church of Christ. This is Whitney speaking. The whisperer.
Church of Christ.
Even though
y'all don't have music. What was
we
that
had
like?
music, but we didn't have instruments.
They don't do instruments.
We don't even clap.
Wait, that's a thing? Like they don't like music, or
It's literally
they're not allowed.
It's not even about. It's literally. So to the Church of Christ, it is a distraction. It's taking away from. Yeah.
Alicia's losing her mind right now.
I know.
Because she's the total opposite.
So people think the two are. So you have. I was born basically shit. Sorry, I know, but dang, we're talking about this, so I just feel really guilty. I was like raised in a Church of Christ, but there's also Kojic, so the Church of God in Christ, which is different.
What I'm more aware of.
Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, they have similarities or whatever, but then I didn't mean similarities, by the way. I just corrected myself. They have similarities, but they're not the same. For me, I did grow up with my parents being Church of Christ, even though they grew up in different denominations, which was very interesting. Because I feel like they got to discover their faith and they just told me mine. Because I feel like even now they still are very much like, you got to go to worship if you're going to stay here. And I'm like, well, I'm just not going to stay here. and so no shame, my parents are awesome people. It's just like when people are really like into religion and all that, sometimes it turns a different way than what I would hope for. But yeah, my grandmother was Baptist through and through. Through and through. Little church that you travel 20 minutes to from your house on the back roads. And this lady fell out on me once.
She fell out.
Like, caught the Holy Ghost. And I was like, and I pushed her off, and my granny was like, Whitney, you don't. And I'm like, what is this? I didn't know. I was really enjoying the music, too. I was like, hey! Because I didn't get that. I'm usually, like, singing hymns from a hymn book, like, like,
ooh, that's not,
just awful.
So creepy.
You know what? It's not whenever you're used to it. I'm sure that if I invited you,
I would probably feel like I'm like,
what is it?
Yeah.
But then, like, you can imagine my first time going into a church with a lot of music and a lot of hollering, and I was like,
right.
What?
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like what you're used to. I don't know.
Yeah.
But then I was like, oh, I like this. I'm staying awake. Because I used to be in the pews, like, knocking my head on the back of the...
Do you think that if you were brought up in a different denomination, you would, like, be more... No. Okay.
Religion to me, we'll talk about it.
It's stupid.
I'm sure it'll come out. Yeah.
I talked a little bit about it last week, but yeah.
Religion is not, because I don't think it would be different. I do respect that for other people, though. I don't have to be like, I dated an atheist at one point, and I felt like she was really adamant about telling me that there was no God. And I'm like, well, I've had different life experiences. And for me, there's a higher power. There's no way. Science ain't got nothing to do with this. There's nothing else you can tell me, you know?
So do you believe in a higher power?
Yeah, absolutely.
You're just not, like, quick to say, it's Jesus.
You know, whenever you and I talk, I'll be like, well, the universe. Like, and that's what I say, because not that I don't believe that one day I'll be able to identify a higher power and not say something about the universe, but I'm not there yet. So for me, my entire life, I faked it. I stood in front of a congregation after I told myself not to trip in front of all these people. I tripped to go get baptized. I tripped. It was ugly. And I said that I believed that Jesus Christ was the Son of God. I didn't believe it. I just was saying it. Because everybody kept pressuring me as the preacher's kid, the elder's kid, whoever's kid, to, like, get baptized. So I was like, I'm over it. And I asked my friends, I was like, you want to get baptized? And they were like, yeah. So we did it. And then I got to do communion. And we have communion every Sunday.
I actually would love that.
We have
I would like
communion
that
every
too.
Sunday. I did too. Grape juice is really good.
Have you ever had
sorry. I'm
communion?
going to offend so many people. I'm sorry.
I am
I have
here
to
for
make
the
a joke
offense.
about it.
I'm here. We are here to offend people. I feel like we've been like, you know, riding the wave a little. Wouldn't you say? Yeah.
Did y'all? I have a question. So, no, let's get to your denominations. Then I'm going to ask.
Okay.
About communion.
All right. So, Alicia, you grew up in. I mean, we talked about this, but listen.
I grew up non-denominational. My grandmother goes to a missionary Baptist church, so that was kind of part of my upbringing, but the churches that my family as a unit would attend was non-denominational.
That is dope.
But, like, also go deep, because, like, there's so many different non-denominational...
What is their, like... background, I guess.
When I hear non-denominational, and this is probably awful, until I got older and understood how big this was, I thought white.
I think I did too.
Yeah.
I think I did too, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you want me to go deeper?
I mean, just like, because
What it
I've
looked
been
like for
I've
me?
been to many types of non-denominational churches where, like, even though you're non-denominational, you're usually rooted in something that a denomination or other denominations subscribe to.
So, I feel like most of the churches that I've attended, once I actually started learning about, or me looking back at what the denomination backing was, it usually was based off of what the pastor's backing was. And I feel like they've pretty much all been either Baptist or like Baptist with a little mix of Pentecostal.
Got you. I mean, that's like the main thing that separates me and you, is like the more of the like Pentecostal influence. Whereas I grew up Baptist, missionary Baptist, which, so like, it was very like music. People did shout. People did, you know, be doing the most.
Tongues, all that.
No tongues.
No?
My Baptist church was like absolute. It's like,
Wow.
we'll allow you to be expressive because it's just like black people are expressive, you know, like,
Yeah, absolutely.
but only in the constraints of like, so and the thing about Baptists that I love and appreciate is that there's this like religious autonomy. Like, there's no answering to a hierarchy in the way that like Methodists or Lutherans or Catholics, you know, where there's like, you have a bishop and you have, you know, these rules where like you can't just do whatever you want as an individual church. And if you decide to do that, you run the risk of disassociating yourself from the denomination, or you're in defiance of what that denomination is. Like, that's why what was happening in the Methodist Church was so pivotal, like, recently with their, trying to have the conversation about LGBTQ inclusion, because the Methodist Church is very split right now on that. And a lot of people were, like, toying with the idea, like, do I need to leave the Methodist Church altogether? And there are some Methodist churches that are like, we're going to stand behind our queer members and, like, continue to, perform same-sex weddings and let them preach and whatever, despite what the denomination says. Whereas with Baptists, it's like, you have a basic, like, Baptist doctrine, but, like, how you live that out and how you interpret that is, like, up to the individual church. So, like, the best example I can give is that here in Nashville, like, my church was one of the first churches, like, Black Baptist churches, to ordain a woman to preach unapologetically. Hey. And so we're part of, like, conventions and stuff. So, like, the thing about that is that the convention is, like, we don't affirm women preachers. So when we go to the conferences and those types of things, our women ministers are not affirmed in that space. So, like, but at home we recognize them as ordained women, clergy women. And so, but, like, just because we ordain women or another church doesn't ordain women, you're still a Baptist, There's no one's going to say you can't be Baptist anymore because you ordain women or you don't. That's just an individual choice that you have made according to your convictions of how you interpret scripture.
I feel like you saying that makes me, like, go back to being around my grandmother and her in the Missionary Baptist Church, and just, like, seeing these things, like, yeah, there wasn't really a hierarchy there. It was like
it's whatever.
But I'm not familiar with a Protestant faith. Mm-hmm. I don't, and even going back to the whole non-denominational thing, I was in Girl Scouts, so a lot of my friends we were all over the place, but a lot of them were non-denominational. So I went to church with them. I was like, ooh, I can go all the time. Because, like, I would be in the sanctuary and I would be, like, having church, and then my friend would be like, do you want to go back to the chill room? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And then they would have, like, recliners and, like, projection. And I'm like, dude, I gotta go to a non-denominational church. Why am I struggling? Why am I here?
But see, that's how I felt, like, growing up. Because back to the tongues thing, like, no tongues. Like, so our church, like, they don't believe that the gifts of the Spirit continued after the canon of the Bible was established. Our belief is, well, I'm gonna say there because I no longer subscribe to that belief anymore. Mm-hmm. But their belief was that you don't need these charismatic gifts because they were used as signs for belief. Mm-hmm. But now that we have the Bible, that's good enough. And I'm like, no.
I just choked.
Yeah. And Alicia and I, like, that's kind of how we I don't know, became, I feel like I really, like, became your friend after we had that little tiffy in your room. And I was like...
So all the time before you wasn't my friend?
I mean, I didn't really know you like that. I didn't really know you like that.
Just kidding.
Okay. But no, those conversations, I was like, I'm really starting to get to know this person, and, like, but remember, the pivotal point of that was, Alicia's explaining to me why tongues is all right. Mm-hmm. And then I'm listening to her talk about how it has strengthened her relationship with God and, like, just all these things. And I'm like, I looked at you and I said, you know what? Maybe I'm just jealous. So, yeah, 2 years later, speaking in tongues in my car.
I wish somebody would speak in tongues in my parents' congregation, because if you know me, you know I do not go to church anymore. But if somebody did that, I would come back every Sunday because I want to know what's going to happen next. I just feel like When I grew up, I realized that I felt religion. Let me say not realize, but I feel like religion is not as legitimate as it seems, because I feel like everybody, just as we're all different people, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, it has to be the same. There's no way, like, I can fall into these practices, but ultimately, like, me going to a Church of Christ, I didn't necessarily believe it, but because my parents were taking me, I was going. Or when I got older and I went to college, I found a church that was literally within walking distance of my school. Like, I could walk to church in 5 minutes. Yeah. I found that, and they fed us at the end, and cool, I'm chilling. But, like, listening to what they were saying and reading the Bible, I was like, no. And that's not how my relationship with God has been, and that's not my particular experience. And then, I don't know, I can't speak for everybody, but my experience in the Church of Christ was that my journey to God and my relationship with God would develop in a different way than everyone else's.
Mm-hmm.
Until it wasn't. Until I got like 12 or 13, and they're like, so when are you going to get baptized? And like this, like, I'm like, yo. And I was seeing kids that I was around, like, that were like me and my sister are 5 years apart. I have several siblings. We adopted some. I have one biological sibling. And to me, I was the Bible Bowl captain. Like, we went to state. Like, I was like, look, we finna, not because I was excited about God, but because I was excited about the competition aspect. It was the first time we were talking about sports earlier. I sucked at all of that, but I wanted to be competitive. Mm-hmm. And this was the one thing, like, I could gain knowledge and know these things. And then, like, win and be like, yo. And my parents are like, yes, but I wasn't. I was not connected to it in any way. And not because I didn't want to be, because I tried so hard. Did everything by the book. They didn't even know I like girls. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, just all types of things that I did right, and nothing was happening. It was just like, what am I trying to force? So to me, when my dad tells me, hey, yeah, we would love for you to stay here and save your money, but you have to attend worship. It's like, okay. So if I'm there and I'm not really there, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, that might be worse than me just not going.
True. Agreed.
You know? Because it's not a genuine, me just taking up space on a pew isn't doing anything.
Agreed.
Not for the higher power.
Agreed.
Not for the God that he believes in either.
Mm-hmm.
Because it talks about being lukewarm. And the Bible talks about all these things. Because my parents are firm believers in the Bible. Me, not so much. But they are. So even if I am going off of that, then what? It doesn't make much sense.
Yeah.
But I can't have that conversation with certain people because...
Well, because I feel like it's part of church culture in general, but I always felt like it seemed a little more, there's a little bit more pressure within the Black community. There's this assumption that, like, all Black people are part of this, like, Christian background. And, like, part of that is accurate in the sense that most Black people that you talk to that, like, were born and raised in the United States has some type of encounter with the Christian faith, whether that was I went to church with my grandmother during the summers, or my parents, like, my community. And, like, it makes sense because, like, a lot of our social justice movements, like, have a lot of foundation within the church. Like, the reason why the civil rights movement was able to be as successful as it was, that was due to people like Dr. King, who were preachers, pastors. Like, it's no denying that the Black churches, like, fueled a lot of growth and development in the Black community, but at the same time, in my opinion, can also be a detriment.
It's been a hindrance in several places.
Yeah. just because of we've allowed the closed-mindedness that can exist within the Christian empire.
Mm-hmm. That's why I put a name on it. Because the idea of hope and faith is so beautiful. Because sometimes that's all you have to go on. You know, like, all these bad things are happening.
Yeah.
And you having that faith or having that belief that no matter what, like, I'm good. It is so beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And then we put these limits on it. And it's like...
I mean, like, when I think about the goodness of Jesus, now in my 27-year-old self, like, the Jesus that I read about and think about and want to, you know, be with, is a liberator, is a rebel rouser, and is misunderstood by the religious, like, empire. And as Black people, that is very enticing, especially, like, in the context of slavery and oppression. Like, to have a higher power say, I know it's bad right now, but one day this will be all over. And like, the promises of God, like, are very enticing, and it makes sense. Like, we would latch to that faith, even though for a lot of us that faith was introduced to us through oppression. But one thing I do want to say is that what white people need to understand is that you didn't really give us this faith. You exploited the faith and gave us a watered down bullshit version that has kept us in bondage. But if you actually look at scripture, there's evidence to support that. Like, when the apostles were going around spreading the gospel, the gospel's been, like, in Africa for a long time before anybody decided we're going to bring us over here, you know, to work. So it's like Christianity has been infiltrated, like, all over since the beginning. It's just that, you know, certain powers that be, just like with any religion, I feel like, take the beautiful tenets of it and wrap it up to fit their own agenda, to justify their evils and their greed. And we've bought into it for over 400 years.
Or even just something they feel like should be tweaked that might be minor.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Like, you're a teacher that really doesn't like you, can't find anything wrong in your paper, but they're like, oh, you would have used this adjective instead. Okay, bro. All right.
Yeah. And so it's just like, because I believe we as Black people are still dealing with the generational trauma of slavery and oppression over the centuries.
Because it's just taking a different form.
Yeah, we use the faith that we were given to try to make sense of it, and some of us, you know, take that journey of evolving. I feel like you're evolving, and I'm evolving, and Alicia's evolving, but like what you're evolving looks like doesn't have to look like ours, you know.
It won't.
It won't. It can't.
No matter
like,
what.
So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with this.
Water will take on any shape.
Yeah.
Whatever I put it in, that's what water's going to do. We are not built that way.
Right.
Period.
So, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, the Black church is interesting. For a long time, I kind of despised it just because of all the problematic shit that I would see. But then when I dipped my toes into white evangelical land.
Was it hot?
Oh, Jesus. Keep me. You know, you saw. You were like, I mean, you were around.
Yeah. I was like, wait, what?
I don't have a lot of experience with that.
I mean, just a lot of tokenism, like, just a lot of things that I was experiencing in my, like, everyday life.
Was this
being
when
in predominantly white spaces?
When
but
you went to school? Was this when you were at home? Was this?
It was like when I got to ISU, when I got to college, my dad immediately was like, "We're gonna find you a church home." Like literally, I went up to audition for Alicia's face. Dang. Okay, but I went up to.
It's just too much.
Hey listeners, just wanted to bring to your attention something amazing and beautiful as a little shameless plug. Innovative Love Coalition is a group of affirming Christian creatives who are reintroducing God's love through creative experiences, justice initiatives, and acts of service. Founded by recording artist Gaston, one of their first projects is the creation and recording of God Our Ally, a worship album by queer Christians and allies. You can support them by giving to their Kickstarter, which we will link in the show notes. And you can also follow them on Instagram at Innovative Love Coalition. Also, if you want to hear more about Gaddison's story and how this project came to be, I highly recommend listening to his episode on Matthias Roberts' podcast, Queerology. I'm such a fan and supporter of Matthias's work, and his podcast is amazing, so I highly recommend you check it out and give it a listen, especially if you're a queer person of faith or someone who wants to know how to be a better ally or just wants to know more about that kind of stuff. So shout out to Matthias for all that you do and all that you are. And shout out to Gaddison and everyone involved with Innovative Love Coalition for the amazing work that you're doing and for giving us something that we've been wanting and needing for a long time. Okay, we had to take a pause. Heavy. You got so heavy on me. Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Breathe it in my ear like you like
Breathe it in my ear like you Alicia, did you watch Back in the Band? Oh my God. Alicia, get on YouTube ASAP and rewatch the first season. It was T-Rash. It was so bad. Like, I'm crying. I should have tagged her and all that stuff too. I'll just blow you up. I'm gonna go back and do that shit because it's so horrible. And these girls that went home, I know I'll be a star one day, and I ain't seen them, and I know why, because you couldn't sing. She needs some milk.
All right, so we were talking about me in white evangelical land.
Yes.
I went to college. My dad was like, you need to be in church. We're going to find you a church home. Literally the weekend I auditioned for the program, he called one of his pastor friends. He was like, didn't you used to live in Bloomington Normal? And he was like, yeah, brother, what can I do for you? And he gave him the name of the church that he used to pastor in Bloomington. So my dad was like, well, guess we're going there to church on Sunday. And this church, it was a Baptist church. I'm not going to say the name, but shout out to
that church.
Yes, I love you all. Yes. Yeah, we got there. My dad, there's a part of the service where they're like recognizing visitors. And in this church, it was so old school because they're like, if we have any visitors, would you stand and give your name and church affiliation should you have one? And of course, my dad, being the preacher that he is, he stands up. And me and my mama are like, oh, Lord. He's like, and my name is blah, 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 blah. And we're from Nashville and you know, we're here because our daughter's auditioning to go to school here. And, you know, everybody's like, amen, amen, yes. There was a lot of ISU alum in that church. So they were like, yeah. So it was just kind of inevitable. I didn't feel like I had much of a choice but to, like, link up with this church. Like, and I'm glad I did. Like, I made some lifelong friendships there, and I learned a lot. I feel like it had to be that way. But Yeah, after my little emotional breakdown, and I decided to come back home for a year, I was just like, what is church? Why doesn't the church talk about mental health? And so I thought that the solution would to be to leave the black church and go seek something else. And I just sort of, when I got back, actually, when I was living here in Nashville for a year, I'd linked up with a young lady who I was dancing with, and she invited me to her Bible studies at her house all the time, and I was the only person of color there, and then somebody was telling me about a one of the mega churches here in town. It was predominantly white Southern Baptist, but they were like, you really just need to go because the pastor like has some good teaching. So I was like, I'm down to listen to get some good teaching. I don't care what color you are, what denomination you come from. If you saying good stuff, you're saying good stuff. And at the time, the stuff he was saying was good stuff to me.
Yeah.
It aligned with, what I believed in and what I subscribed to, what I was striving to be. This is still when I'm like, God's gonna deliver me from homosexuality, and I'm gonna live. I'm gonna get it together, and so that environment, it just made sense. And so when I got back to school, I started not going to the church I was going to at first as much, and started dibbling and dabbling into all sorts of other churches, and a lot of those churches were predominantly white and were part of the evangelical culture and persuasion. And yeah, I got caught up in the hype, and then I met up with these white charismatic folk that gave me permission to operate in the Holy Spirit, and
as you were,
just like, oh, this is the Holy Spirit. Okay, got it. Just all around the prophecy and the tongues and the healing and all of it. And I was just, dibble dabble. Every now and then I go back to the black church persuasion, and every time I would, I'm like, it feels good to be home, because no place like home. And then, I don't know, like me going through my coming out experience, at that point, it was just like a simultaneous, like, I'm going through, my faith is evolving, and I'm also evolving as a person because I'm giving myself permission to walk in who I am. It just all was one synchronized thing. And then I kind of came to the conclusion that, the image of the black church that I was being given was probably influenced by whiteness and white supremacy. And so now I'm like, I love the black church. Do we have problems? Yes, we do.
Well, everywhere it is.
But I love the black church because I love black people. And once I came out as queer, I realized, us queer folk have been involved in the black church for centuries, and we're not going anywhere. And so instead of me trying to run to these other places that got problems too, I either need to just not go at all, or I need to try to,
that's me.
It's
either or for me.
I think I'm kind of in between. Like, I will attend church.
Well, that's what I'm saying. For me, it's like either I go to a black church or I don't go at all. Yeah.
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 Because for me, I'm trying to reestablish what it is to own my blackness in my way. And so I'm trying to, like, when I do go to church, I'm trying to immerse myself in more, like, black church spaces, but reclaiming it and redefining it, like, that makes sense to me.
Reclaiming my time.
Yes. So, I don't know, because there's a lot of rich history that just cannot be ignored or disputed when it comes to the black church. But my biggest thing with the black church and a lot of churches now is the LGBT thing. Like,
so,
because the black church, like, what I'm noticing is that at least, like, a lot of white evangelical spaces are openly having these conversations.
That's what I was gonna ask Alicia
But
about as far as non-denominational churches.
Well, yeah,
go.
like
Are they more receiving of the queer community?
It depends on what church, of course.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's pretty much it. I don't know of any church that is like publicizing being affirming or anything. I do know of churches that a lot of people who identify with LGBTQ will go there. Like it feels like a safe space. But then it's kind of hard because oftentimes then I start to hear stories of like the craziness that's happening because they're all there. Not from like people being like, oh, they did, but them like messing with each other. Because regardless of anything, I'm just going to say men are men and they don't know how to control themselves. So, so there's just always stuff going wrong. But, plain answer, no.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're as harsh.
But I also wonder, because I haven't ever stepped into a space of trying to... I just recently reached out to Ava and was like, I want to know more queer affirming churches and things like that, but I've never stepped into a space
I could probably count on one hand churches in this city, the city of Nashville,
I'm surprised you can count past 2
that
fingers.
is black, like a black church, and also queer affirming and publicizing that, like clear.
And see, for me,
You can count. I don't know of any.
I wonder.
I can think of
it's
two.
like you can pick
I can
like
think of
queer
two.
affirming or black or
I can think of two. I can think of a lot of white churches in this city that are queer affirming because they belong to denominations that have fought the good fight to.
But my question is,
allow
then
that.
how do I know that it's genuine? But then, okay, because I mean, we get on that train of like, okay, this is like trendy now, and to me, that's why religion is so iffy because it happens, and it's like this is trendy now, so let's like, and I ain't got time, but also like, is it a lot like the patriarchal system that we're in the world in general? If we strip religion away, where it's like, oh, you're a lesbian, you're bi, and you're a woman, that's hot. Pansexual, what does that mean? What? Demi said, wait, what? Mm-hmm. So you like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And then a man is like, I'm a gay man and I'm a Christian. Those do not exist. And don't touch me because I'll probably catch it.
I mean,
I don't know. It's like, is it,
the queer affirming churches that I've been to, and granted, like, I've never been a member of those churches, just like attended. Like, I went to a Pride worship service last summer at an Episcopal church, and the thing I'll say is, like, the Episcopal church is probably the most progressive you're gonna get out of the Protestant denominations.
I'm so confusion.
Yeah, but like it was also a predominantly white space. So where I felt safe to worship God as a queer person,
not as a black person.
I was still skeptical as a black person. So that's why I say I can only think of two churches where it is clear that queer black people are safe and affirmed, in the sense that not just I love you no matter what, but we celebrate you, we honor you, your queerness is a gift.
And that's why
you're created
a space
for black people, for queer people, the intersection of the two, like yeah. But I get it because the orthodoxy, I say this in air quotes, of Christianity in general, like, doesn't necessarily support, like,
because ultimately
LGBTQ.
They believe it's a sin.
Yeah.
They believe it's an abomination. Let's, like, scratch the sin word. So, like, that's the thing because a lot of churches probably see it as, well, if I say this is okay, then what I'm saying is that an abomination to God is okay.
Right. And we're talking about your eternal soul here. So I get it, but it's like once I evolved my faith to realize nobody knows anything. We're all just doing the best we can. Some of us are making this shit up as we go.
Some. There's like literally, and I mean, we talk about there's no blueprint for raising children. There's no blueprint. Look,
there's no blueprint for faith.
For faith, and people will be the Bible, the Bible, the Bible. I can write that just as quick as old girl wrote Judy B. Jones. That's all I'm saying. Is like faith is a great thing and a beautiful thing, but if I don't have it, I don't have it, and I don't feel like it's something that can necessarily just be taught.
No,
I feel like it's something that you learn because you experience, and then there are these inevitable things that happen, and it's like, because I've probably been one of the biggest questioners of God, probably. And
what I see in you is that you're a questioner of the Christian God that was created for you, but you are tapped into the divine.
Now, this is new.
Yeah.
This is super new. Because I didn't question. So there were, growing up in the religion that I grew up in, it wasn't like I was just sitting there like, man, this is bullshit. Even though there were times when I was like, especially when I heard a woman couldn't speak, I said, "She can't speak? What?" And I laughed in class, and they were like, "Whitney, do you have something to say?" I was like, "No, that's just funny." And they were like, "What?" And this is like my teenage years where I was just like, I have attitude with everybody, so it didn't matter. But like, I was like, a woman can't speak? Like, what? And the conversation got diverted somewhere else, of course.
Right.
But like, I believed. I wanted to believe so much that I was, this is where I was. And I was a good kid. Like, my parents will still tell you to this day, my mom is still so confused. She's like, whenever I came out, she's like, I don't understand, like, where did this come from? Like, because I dated, I said it in the last podcast, I dated the same guy off and on from, like, 7th, 8th grade till I was, like, 22. Like, but he was like, you've been liking girls, like, our whole life. Like, I already knew. You like everybody. You just have a lot of love to give. He was so accepting and awesome. And, like, I think when the questions started coming was that even though I knew, so I'm being taught that this is a sin. So I tried to live my life in that way and pursue other things and go to church every Sunday and Wednesday. And we had a morning and evening service. I was at both. I was doing everything. We had ladies' class on nights that weren't supposed to be. I just was always trying to do what I needed to do. Bringing friends to church, trying to convert them. Not really trying to convert them, but just bringing them to church. See what happens. Like, all these things, and I still, like, the things that I experienced, the traumas I experienced. Even my family opening up their home to kids that they did not birth. And the things I experienced within that. And the abuse I experienced in my life. I did not understand how I was doing all of these things that I was supposed to do, and you're just like, I'm finna fuck you up. Like, I didn't get that. So I questioned God for a long time. I was like, ain't no God. Get out of here. No way.
Feel that?
Because I did everything I was supposed to do, and you still, it didn't make sense to me. So then when I did start going through things, and like, in hindsight, was like, dang, ain't no way I would have made that through that just physically, or just like, then I started to believe in something else. And so for me, I mean, faith can falter, for sure. Like, and you've experienced a lot of shit. A lot. And I think that being that I do believe that there is me believing in a higher power also causes me to believe that he understands, or she understands, or it understands, or they understand that we're human if they made us.
Hey y'all, if you enjoy listening to Whitney on the show, go ahead and follow her on Instagram at WHXTNXCOLE. @WhitNicole, and Twitter @OhSoWhitIt. She also has an Instagram specifically dedicated to her work as a photographer @WHXPXCS. Show her some love and support her work. She's doing beautiful things and has amazing things to share. So go support her and check her out. We love her, and I hope that you guys do too.
Can I ask y'all a question about service and when you do go to church, and if it is the same order of everything all of the time?
I mean, it's a general order, but not necessarily.
You
mean as far as, like, things have a time restraint and all of that? No.
Or, like, not even a time restraint, but just like, okay, we're going to do this and then this and this. And then if we veer off, we got to bring it back in. And, like, I don't know.
It depends. Because it depends on what church. Because, like, I'm technically a member of my parents' church. But that's back home where I don't live right now. But the church that I go to now, and then the church that I went to during college, are in the same town, but very different. And so I feel like the one that I went to during college was kind of like stay focused, stay on task, but also like not, because
I laugh because I've been a couple of times.
I feel like they would like stay on task with certain things, so that like
what was important.
I feel like
to
they cared more about the word and like letting that have enough time so that the pastor could just like do his thing. And the church that I go to now, it's like the word is still a longer time given, but they are very strict on the time for praise and worship.
My daddy, like their church, everything is like, okay, we do this many songs, then it's a scripture and prayer. Then it's one more song. Then it's the preacher. Okay. Then it's the invitation, so you can come up and repent if you want to. Then we got communion and contribution. And then you
what is that, like offering?
Yeah.
I'm about to say it sounds like...
Yeah, contribution. Oh, my God. Offering any of it. Oh, my gosh. When there was a point in time where I got, like, a print off from my dad. From my dad about how much money I gave. I said, Fred, what? You gonna give this to Drake? You gonna give this to me? To me?
I actually got called up in front of the church when I was 17, 18 years old because there was some Social Security government thing or something, I can't remember, something to do with my mom, like getting a disability check or something, where some of the money was going to me. So my parents were like, oh, you're getting like $1,500 like every month, so you're going to... It was basically the same money that they were getting.
Oh my God.
But so the money that was going to me like was already going to bills. So this is how I learned how to pay bills. Like it was a teachable moment. But then also like my parents were like, tithes is always the first bill, you know? So I ended up that year giving... I was one of the top people like giving tithes like that year. Girl. And my pastor called me up in front of the church and basically, as I look back on it, it's like, dang, you kind of just like shamed some of these people in the sense that it was like, if this 18-year-old girl can pay tithes every month, like what the fuck is wrong with the rest of you? He didn't say it that way, but it was basically and that like, I hated that because I was a PK, like, I was always put on a pedestal.
You were put in a fishbowl, okay? You were a goldfish.
Yeah.
And everybody was looking at you like this. And then sometimes they would feed you, but sometimes they would forget. You were literally a goldfish. You were literally a goldfish.
Sometimes they would forget.
Like, ooh, did you feed April today? Shit. Not today or yesterday. Fuck. Let me give you some extra. And then you're overfed, and then you're on top of the water like, fuck, what the fuck? You know? That's exactly what happened.
If y'all could see my face right now.
No, but really, because you were going to be the kid that everybody's like looking at it. It's like, oh, did you hear April did this? I got called a hoe so many times when I was a preacher's kid. And you know what? I didn't lose my virginity till years and years after all of their kids. And I sure wasn't in the church bathroom doing whatever the fuck.
Mm-hmm.
Could I have been? Yes. Did I think about it? Hell the fuck yes.
But not you.
But I just, it was just like this thing where it was just like, haha, look at Whitney and everything, poking and prodding and everything. Then on top of that, we adopted kids in the midst of all, just not, my parents did not make the best choices. And not on my part. They were so loving and giving, but like, damn, I'm over here struggling for air. Oh,
I didn't feel like people were necessarily like poking and prodding in this. Like I never if it was happening, I wasn't aware like of people being like, "Ooh, did you see Abra?" Like I didn't give them a reason to.
Me either.
I worked so hard to ensure that there's no reason to gossip about me.
But then maybe that's the difference in the denominations.
Mm-hmm. But
Because
then again, I could have just been very oblivious to things because as I have grown up, like, there have been little hints dropped to me that maybe this persona that I thought maybe wasn't true. Like maybe people were saying things about me. Maybe people did have, you know, concerns about me, but it was just on the hush hush, like, or because I was so tunnel vision of trying to like make sure that
what you needed to do.
My image was protected. And a lot of the things that I was trying to protect myself from were things that like you can't even help. Like a lot of it was my mental health issues. Like when I started self-harming when I was like 11, 12 years old. And like they were very visible like on my arm, and I just remember like always going to church like trying to come up with some story or like hide them, and people would like ask, you know, like where'd you get that, like what happened, and like come up with this. I remember coming up with this bullshit story about how like I scratched myself on a fence, bitch. Not the way, like if they're too, you know, I'm not trying to trigger anybody. I'm gonna have to put a trigger warning on the thing.
No, but that's real. But like, I did it. I self-harmed, but I didn't do it until I was older. Mm-hmm. And not like in my 20s, but like, I mean, I did in my early 20s, but I'm saying like,
yeah,
mine was later. So I was making sure didn't nobody see that shit. Mostly,
but it's kind of like you see this, and like I could see on their faces like this girl is so full of shit. You know, and nobody, like, did anything.
Nobody's gonna check on you. They're just gonna talk about it.
They're just gonna be like, So, like, me coming out, like, I haven't, like, stood up in front of the church to say, like, hey, guys, like...
I never will.
You know? Like, I don't think that's...
That. They do not deserve that.
But I don't think that's even necessary.
It's not
but,
necessary.
like, I know people follow me on social media. I know people are probably listening to this podcast. People, like, hear me... you know, speak on things, and it's like, I know that people are probably like Abra's.
No, they're just nosy, and that's just the point A, B, C. It's all of the above. It just is, because there's nothing, unless you are coming from a place of love and like genuine concern. I haven't found that anywhere. There's nothing to talk about, and I think one of the biggest parts of me not even being able to feel like I could express myself, and this is all due to you all's podcast, because I'm sitting here having to reel and think, and I was not only afraid to come out because that shit's scary, but also in the midst of me figuring that out about myself, we had adopted these kids, and I was the middle child at the time, but because I was firstborn, I was expected to be the leader and to be the one doing the right thing all the time. There was no room.
Yeah.
I didn't understand all of who I was because I didn't understand what was happening within my family either. Mm-hmm. Ain't no time for me to tell you I'm struggling with this when you just took in kids that have never had stability and all of these other things, and you decided, oh, well, now that that's over, now that we finalized that, I want to be a pastor. What? what you going through? And then, like, is that okay with you? Well, really, you're not asking me for real. If I say no, you still gonna do it? There was no, oh my God, what? That's crazy.
If you're someone who considers himself to be a mover, a creative, an artist, and you also are interested in merging your craft with your spiritual practice or faith tradition, then I want to tell you a little bit about a new class that I am launching. This class is an exploration-based experience where we will merge our passion for movement and our engagement with faith and spirituality. This class is an inclusive space for all traditions, beliefs, and backgrounds, as we're not bound by religion nor seek to convert anyone to a specific religious system. This is an open space to investigate how our spiritual being can integrate with our physical being to help inform our craft as movers and artists. We will seek to reimagine the full embodiment of movement through codified technique, improvisation, phrase work, and meditation and mindfulness practices as a means to create inclusive communities and encounter a divine presence. We will reclaim our faith traditions and develop healthy spiritual practice, and we will work to restore our relationships to our bodies, minds, and souls as we come out of places of shame and enter places of acceptance and wholeness. In addition to moving our bodies, we'll also engage in the practice of discussion. Sharing verbally is not required, but you are invited to open yourself to the various possibilities that exist within vulnerability and connecting with others. All levels of movement experiences are welcome. So I am super excited about launching this new class. It will be taught, hopefully, on a regular basis in the new space that Found Movement Group is opening coming soon. So if you want more information about that, go over to foundmovementgroup.com or follow us on Instagram at FMGDance to know more about that. But I'm also open to teaching it in other spaces as well. And I'm in the process of piloting this because it is new. I don't think anyone has done something like this or is doing anything like this in a lot of the communities that I'm a part of or serving in. So if you are interested in having me come out and teach this class, you can hit me up and I'd be glad to give you some more information on how we can make that happen. Additionally, I'm going to be in Illinois August 26th through August 10th, and I'm hoping to utilize this opportunity to pilot this class and bring this class to my friends and my supporters and just people that I respect and love there as well. So if you want me to teach this class or you want to know more about it or want to know how you can support it while I'm there, just hit me up, reach out to us on the podcast and be happy to give you more info. In the meantime, just stay tuned.
I was just so confused. And now that I remember him being like, yeah, I think I want to be a pastor. What do you think about that? And I'm just like, I don't even think I said words. I was just like, and shook my head.
I mean, I was born.
And your dad was already.
He was already.
Woo, God.
He was already ordained, so that's all I've ever known.
Alicia, what about you?
My dad is really more so a worship leader. Oh shoot.
Same thing.
So anything else, like now he's a pastor, but like singing is his thing, just in general. So that's mostly him. So he's always been in ministry, but not necessarily like in a top position. But kind of he also has, because like the very first church that we went to, he was over the praise and worship team. And then the next church we went to, there was a little time where he wasn't, but then I don't know if he like auditioned or what happened, but like very quickly he became a part of the team. And then once they saw how skilled he was, he started like quickly rising to the top. Then he was over all of praise and worship, like every single aspect of it. So he was dealing with the band and the singers and all of that stuff. It's called the minister of music. So he's a minister of music for years. And that church actually has a record company. Well, they used to. I don't know if they still do.
That's cool.
But they did like live recordings like constantly. And so because of that, then it became like an even bigger job because he was really like integral in those albums or even in like the vocal training and stuff. And then now he's pastor of his own church and over everything again, along with my mom. I mean, my mom has been there the whole time, but my mom doesn't sing, so she can't like, really be a part of that. She's always just been, she's an intercessor.
Yes, I was about to say, shout out to your mom.
My mom can pray.
Yes,
okay.
Lord.
And she will pray for you in a second. It's great. It's really, I honestly think that like, that's her love language.
Yeah. Oh.
Which is great because I say that because like if I'm talking about something, she'll talk to me, of course, like normal conversation, but then she will like always end it with prayer. If it's like a serious situation, she can tell that I'm stressed or something. Like my first year teaching, the day, what school was that? The school it was one of the school shootings.
Columbine?
And it happened.
Was it when you were you're not that old. I ain't. How old are you?
25.
Oh my God, Abra! You bring me around all these babies.
Shut up. You're not even that older than us.
I'm
You're
definitely older than her.
You're 28. I'm 27.
It's okay.
But whenever I said Columbine, she said, I'm not that old. I was like,
well, no, I know that I remember that, but I wasn't teaching.
Was it like
then.
Virginia Tech or something?
No, it was like within the
Recent.
last like
Sandy Hook.
Parkland.
I remember Sandy Hook too, but Parkland.
Ooh,
that was my first year teaching.
Oh my God!
And so I mean I already know like how it is because when I was in student teaching or even as a student in high school, people have always been like shot and killed and stuff. But the whole going into the school thing, that was the part that was like. So I remember the night that happened, or the day that happened. That night, my friend was supposed to come over and stuff was just all over the place. I guess I was already emotional. I have no idea. I literally was driving home from like Bible study or something. And I just broke down. Like full panic.
Because you're not just responsible for yourself either.
Exactly. And I know me, I would quickly jump in front of a bullet for anybody around me, honestly. Because that's how my dad is. And I like model my dad a lot. And so just think about that. I remember breaking down and then my friend like wasn't coming through and I'm just like, bro, I just need somebody. So I don't like calling out. I don't like crying in front of people, period. Even though they weren't in front of me. I don't like people hearing me cry. None of that. Yeah. I just go through it by myself. It's cool. Just, but I just couldn't. And so I called my parents and I was trying to talk, but I was crying so hard I couldn't even talk. And both of my parents just started like praying. And that's just them. And it was just like... Yeah. I mean, like, we talked a little bit before, and, like, I think the only words I could get out was just, like, no, because they were like, what's wrong? Like, are you in pain? And I was just like, no, the kids, the shooting, or something like that. And they were like, oh, you're a teacher. It just clicked. They were like, you're a teacher. She thinking about her kids. Like, they had a little conversation, and then they just started praying. And I just remember being, like, balled up on my couch, like, just bawling. And so, yeah. Back to what we were saying originally. Sorry. That was a moment. Really I love my parents. I love y'all. But
I want to get pray for me.
She will. I promise you, if I called her right now, she'd be like, she'd be like, what's her name?
Oh my
then you get on the phone, she'd be like, how beautiful. Okay.
And then I would do my crying stuff.
So, yeah, my mom has always been in ministry as well, but more like the background, low-key stuff, because she don't like all that attention. She be, can't do it. Besides, she's actually like me. No, she's not. I like attention. But as far as the whole, like, there's parts of me, like, sometimes I don't like all of that attention. But my mom used to be a dancer. And so, like, when it comes to being on stage and stuff, of course, we like, yes, give us all the attention.
Right there.
But then it's like, outside of that, it's like, stop looking at me. Like, So she usually is just, like, supporting my dad. And she's actually my dad's, like, manager when it comes to his music stuff. So, yeah. Honestly,
that's another thing. When you talk about PKs, it's different in different religions. So for me, technically I'm a pastor's kid, but my dad is an elder of a church. So in the Church of Christ, you have the elders, and you have the deacons, and the preacher. Elders, deacon, preacher, like it's different.
Yeah,
it is. Because for us, an elder, there's like the pastor, preacher, whatever you call it. And then, I mean, some people, they'll call deacons, but, like, not all churches have deacons, and if they do, then
Right.
like they don't necessarily like
Do
publicize it so
anything,
much
yeah.
or do anything special. So like for the order of like my dad's ascension, I guess that's a good word. Felt kind of extra, but he started out because of his leadership in ministry. He started out as Elder Phil, and then he became Prophet Phil.
Ooh.
Which that's not a step that everybody goes to, because
It feels
everybody
really heavy.
yeah everybody isn't a prophet.
It's not.
And even for my dad, that goes into a whole nother thing of like the levels of being a prophet, because my dad, like, he can prophesy, but he's more so like God speaks to him when he's in his like musical flow. So literally where he like his creativity lives, that's when he hears God the most. So he was more so like a musical prophet, but they just call him Prophet Phil. And then from there, then he went to Pastor Phil. So it's the opposite for us. Elder is the top for y'all. Elder is the bottom for us. And you work your way up.
But like in the
don't
Church
have
of Christ,
elders.
elder means pastor, which is really
Yeah, we don't have elders. It's, you have the pastor, you have your associate ministers, and that's what my father is.
The first time I heard that was from you.
yeah, me too.
So you have your associates, you have your preachers, your ministers, and then you have your deacons and your trustees. Now, the deacon and all that, but the deacons and trustees actually have more power than people think, because, like, I mean, the church I was raised in, like, they just went through the transition of, like, the pastor that I had, like, he retired, and then they had to vote in somebody else, and, like, how those decisions are made, like, the deacons and trustees run the show, baby.
Yeah. That's how my dad is. And like, they just got a new preacher. You were saying your preacher's 30 now?
Around that age, yeah.
So is mine. Yeah. My parents, Demetrius, who I actually have a really cool relationship with. Like, he's a cool dude. I think he's awesome. His fiance Chloe is super dope. They're like my age. Yeah. And he's like running the show. Well, not even running the show, because that's the elder's job. But like, that's taking on this great responsibility of being the minister of a congregation. Like,
you're being you are the shepherd. Like, the shepherd of this house.
But that's what the elders are. They kind of oversee. They kind of make sure he's good. Yeah. So my dad does that. Hold up. What time is this concert, though?
Facts.
We need to, like, get going at, like, 8.
Oh, I thought you were going to be like, it starts at 7.
Well, they said doors open at 7, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And it's standing room?
Yeah.
So you don't want to go early?
Cannery or?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So we should, like, wrap up.
I mean, also, you can pause it, right? And
we have to.
I might say we can continue later.
Yeah. I'm not going anywhere. I'll probably stay over.
Hey, it's the month of May, which means it's Mental Health Awareness Month. Share with us how you're raising awareness, breaking down the stigmas, being mindful, and having conversations about mental health this month and every month. Be sure to take care of yourself. Therapy is normal and so needed. We love you all, and thank you so much for listening to the podcast and supporting us. Bye!
We want to thank all of our listeners for tuning in. Continue the conversation with us. Develop a community with other misfits and mystics like us, and get your latest updates on Shameless Plugs and other news by following us on social media. We are on Instagram at Misfits and Mystics Pod, Twitter at Misfits Mystics, and we also have a Facebook page that you can like and share.
Want to reach us directly? Shoot us an email at misfitsandmysticspod@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you, and with your permission, we might give you a shout out on future episodes.
Don't forget to subscribe on whatever streaming service you're using to stay up to date on newest episodes being released.
Leave us a review on iTunes to help us gain more visibility. Plus, we appreciate the feedback.